What happens when two men who've sacrificed everything for their dreams are forced to destroy each other to achieve them? January 9th, 2026 answered that question in the most brutal, emotionally devastating way imaginable. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You've spent your entire career chasing one singular goal, one defining achievement that would validate every sacrifice, every injury, every moment away from family, every doubt you've overcome. You can see it so clearly in your mind that it feels real, feels achievable, feels destined. And then imagine that standing between you and that dream is someone with the exact same story, the exact same desperation, the exact same willingness to sacrifice absolutely everything to achieve their goal. Now imagine that WWE has decided that only one of you gets to continue pursuing that dream, while the other has to watch their life's work crumble to dust. That's not a wrestling match. That's a Greek tragedy. That's what Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes experienced on January 9th, 2026, when they stepped into the most unforgiving match structure professional wrestling has ever devised. 3 stages of hell. 3 separate falls. 3 different match types. One winner who earns a Royal Rumble entry and keeps their championship dreams alive. One loser who gets eliminated from Royal Rumble consideration entirely and has to watch from catering as someone else lives the dream they've been chasing for years. The question that haunted everyone watching wasn't who will win. It was what will be left of either man when this is finally over. Here's what you need to understand before we go any further. This match wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not with these stakes. Not at this specific moment when both men needed victory more than they'd ever needed anything in their professional lives. The original plan, according to multiple backstage sources, was for Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes to both be in the Royal Rumble match, to both have their opportunities to win and potentially main event WrestleMania, to both continue their respective journeys toward completing their stories. But then WWE Creative made a decision that was either brilliant storytelling or cruel manipulation, depending on your perspective. They announced that due to roster balance concerns and too many top stars demanding Rumble spots, one final position in the 30-person Royal Rumble match would be determined through a 3 stages of hell match between Drew and Cody. The winner gets entry to the Rumble and keeps their WrestleMania dreams alive. The loser is completely eliminated from Royal Rumble consideration, effectively ending their chance at the WrestleMania main event for 2026. The cruelty of that stipulation cannot be overstated. These aren't mid-card wrestlers fighting for a participation trophy. These are 2 of WWE's absolute best, 2 men who've main event premium live events, 2 performers with the complete package of ability, charisma, and connection with audiences. Drew McIntyre, the Scottish warrior who was released from WWE, rebuilt himself on the independent circuit and in other promotions, returned to WWE and became WWE champion. Only to have that championship reign occur during the COVID pandemic when arenas were empty and the moment he'd worked his entire life for happened in front of 0 fans. The man who's been chasing redemption, chasing that championship moment in front of a packed arena that validates everything he's sacrificed. Cody Rhodes, the American nightmare who left WWE, built an entire wrestling company from scratch, proved he could succeed outside WWE's system, then returned to finish his father's story by winning the WWE Championship that Dusty Rhodes never held. The man who's openly wept talking about completing his father's legacy, who carries that weight with him every single day. And WWE Creative looked at these 2 men. These 2 deeply sympathetic characters with legitimate emotional stakes that transcend scripted storylines and said, only one of you gets to pursue your dream at Royal Rumble. The other gets nothing. That's not just high-stakes wrestling. That's psychological warfare disguised as entertainment. The atmosphere in the arena on January 9th was unlike anything I've witnessed at a regular Smackdown taping. The crowd understood the magnitude of what they were about to see. This wasn't a match where you could comfortably root for either man to lose because both deserved victory. This wasn't heel versus face, where the moral calculus was simple. This was tragedy in its purest form, 2 protagonists, both worthy, both sympathetic, forced into conflict where victory for one requires complete devastation of the other. As the opening video package played, showing both men's journeys and explaining the stakes in stark, uncompromising terms, you could feel the tension building in that arena. People weren't excited in the typical wrestling fan way. They were anxious. They were dreading what they were about to witness, even as they couldn't look away. Drew McIntyre's entrance was first, and the Scottish Warrior walked to the ring with an expression I'd never quite seen on him before. Not the confident intensity he usually carries. Not the warrior ready for battle energy. This was something deeper and more vulnerable. This was a man who understood that the next hour or so would determine whether his entire career narrative had a redemptive arc or ended as a tragedy about unrealized potential. The crowd's reaction was split but massive, with a significant portion chanting, "Let's go, Drew," in support of a man they'd watched struggle and fight and claw his way back to relevance repeatedly throughout his career. Drew stood in the ring, looking at the empty entrance ramp, waiting for his opponent and perhaps his executioner, his expression mixing determination with something that looked like dread. Cody Rhodes' entrance generated an equally powerful but different crowd reaction. The American Nightmare's connection with audiences is almost spiritual at this point. People don't just support Cody, they're emotionally invested in his journey in ways that transcend typical wrestling fandom. When his music hit, when he walked onto that entrance ramp, the dueling chants began immediately. "Let's go, Cody," / "Let's go, Drew," back and forth, creating that rare atmosphere where the crowd is genuinely divided not because of heel/face dynamics, but because they love and support both competitors equally and are devastated that only one can win. Cody's face as he walked to the ring showed the weight he was carrying, not just this match, not just Royal Rumble implications, but the entire narrative of his father's unfulfilled dream and his own commitment to completing that story. When both men stood in the ring before the bell, when they stood face to face with the referee between them explaining the rules one final time, the emotional intensity was suffocating. These two men respect each other. They've had incredible matches together before. They understand each other's journeys and struggles because they've lived parallel versions of the same story. And now they had to destroy each other, had to be willing to inflict whatever damage was necessary to win, because the alternative, losing and watching from the sidelines as someone else lived your dream, was unbearable. The referee announced the stipulation for the first fall, traditional wrestling match. Standard rules, standard victory conditions, pinfall, submission, or knockout. This was the feeling out process, the opportunity for both men to test each other before the match structure forced them into more extreme environments. The bell rang, and what followed for the next 17 minutes was a wrestling clinic that reminded everyone watching why both men are considered among the absolute best in the industry. The early sequences were technically perfect. Chain wrestling and counter wrestling that showcased both men's fundamentals, neither willing to give an inch, every advantage immediately answered with a counter. Drew's power advantage was repeatedly neutralized by Cody's superior technical skills and ring awareness. Cody's signature offense was countered by Drew's educated strikes and submission attempts. Around the 7-minute mark, after a particularly intense exchange that left both men breathing heavily, they separated and simply looked at each other. And you could see the mutual respect mixed with the recognition that this was going to require going to places neither wanted to go. The first fall reached its crescendo around the 15-minute mark when Drew hit the Claymore kick, his devastating finishing move that's ended countless matches throughout his career. With picture-perfect execution, Cody crumpled to the mat, clearly hurt, and Drew covered for what seemed like certain victory. The referee counted 1, 2, and Cody kicked out at 2 9/10, so close to 3 that the crowd gasped collectively, half believing the match was over. Drew's expression showed disbelief mixed with respect. If the Claymore wasn't enough, what would be? But Cody demonstrated why he's considered one of the most resilient performers in WWE by not just surviving the Claymore, but by mounting offense immediately after kicking out. He hit a disaster kick that rocked Drew, followed by a crossroads, his own finishing move, that drove Drew face-first into the mat. Cody covered, hooking both legs, and the referee counted 1, 2, 3. Cody Rhodes had won the first fall after 18 minutes and 43 seconds of action, putting him ahead 1-0 in the 3 stages of Hell match and halfway to victory. Drew's reaction to losing the first fall was visceral and devastating, not anger at the referee or claims of fast counting, but genuine frustration with himself for not securing victory when he'd had the opportunity. He slammed the mat with both hands, the sound echoing through the arena, before pulling himself up and preparing for the second fall. Because in 3 stages of Hell, there's no time for recovery between falls. You go immediately into the next stage, carrying all the damage and exhaustion from the previous fall with you. The referee announced the stipulation for the second fall: street fight. No disqualifications. No countouts. Falls count anywhere. Weapons are legal. This was where the match would transform from technical excellence into something darker, something more brutal, something that would test both men's willingness to inflict and absorb punishment that goes beyond normal wrestling match physicality. The atmosphere shifted immediately when the street fight rules were announced. The crowd's energy changed from appreciation of technical wrestling to anticipatory excitement about the chaos about to unfold, mixed with genuine concern about how much damage both men were about to inflict on each other. Drew and Cody circled each other in the ring, both calculating how to approach this fall differently than the first, both understanding that the weapons and no DQ environment favored different strategies and tactics. Drew struck first, exiting the ring and immediately going under the apron to retrieve weapons, the traditional wrestling spot, but executed with purpose that transcended cliché. He pulled out a steel chair, then a kendo stick, then a table that he set up at ringside, creating an arsenal of pain that could be utilized throughout this fall. Cody watched from inside the ring, not interfering with Drew's preparation because he was presumably doing his own calculations about how to use these weapons to his advantage. When Drew slid back into the ring with the steel chair, when both men stood facing each other with that steel implement between them, the crowd's volume increased in anticipation of the violence about to unfold. What followed was 17 minutes of controlled brutality that pushed both men to their physical limits while maintaining the storytelling thread that made this match emotionally resonant rather than just violent spectacle. Drew swung the chair at Cody's back with sickening force, the sound of steel meeting flesh creating sympathetic winces throughout the crowd. Cody retaliated by using the kendo stick to target Drew's legs, trying to take away the mobility and base that makes Drew's power offense so effective. Both men bled hard way, from legitimate impacts rather than belating, which added visual authenticity to the beating they were delivering to each other. The most memorable spot of the second fall came around the 12-minute mark when Drew positioned Cody on the table he'd set up earlier at ringside, then climbed to the top rope, clearly planning to deliver a high-risk maneuver that would drive Cody through the table and potentially secure the second fall. But as Drew balanced on the top rope, as he prepared to leap, Cody recovered enough to roll off the table and grab Drew's leg, causing the Scottish warrior to lose his balance and crash through the table himself in a devastating, uncontrolled fall that looked legitimately dangerous. The crowd erupted with a mixture of excitement at the spot and genuine concern about whether Drew was seriously injured. Cody, showing the opportunistic instinct that championship-level performers must possess, immediately capitalized on Drew's crash through the table by dragging his opponent's broken body onto the floor and covering him. The referee counted 1, 2, 3. Cody Rhodes had won the second fall, putting him ahead 2-0 in the 3 stages of Hell match and 1 fall away from complete victory and Royal Rumble entry while eliminating Drew McIntyre from Rumble consideration entirely. The devastation on Drew McIntyre's face as he processed losing the second fall was heartbreaking to witness. This wasn't just about being down 2-0. This was about being 1 fall away from having your dreams destroyed, from watching your story end not with redemption but with failure, from having to live with the knowledge that you were so close to achieving everything you'd worked for and fell short. Drew pulled himself up using the barricade, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, legit from the table spot, his body clearly hurting from 18 minutes of technical wrestling followed by 17 minutes of weapons-based brutality. And he had to immediately prepare for the third fall, knowing that if he lost, everything was over. The referee announced the stipulation for the third fall: steel cage match. The most unforgiving structure in professional wrestling. For walls of steel, escape only through the door or by climbing over the top. Victory by pinfall, submission, or escape. This was the ultimate test: physical punishment from the cage structure itself combined with the psychological pressure of knowing that one mistake, one failed escape attempt, one moment of weakness could end everything. The steel cage lowered slowly from the ceiling, the mechanical grinding creating ominous atmosphere as the structure descended to surround the ring. Both men watched the cage lower, both understanding that once they were locked inside, there was no escape except through victory or defeat. The crowd's energy reached fever pitch as the cage settled into place and the door was locked, creating the prison where one man's dream would survive and another's would die. Drew McIntyre's strategy for the third fall became immediately apparent. He wasn't trying to pin Cody or make him submit. He was trying to escape the cage as quickly as possible, to win through the escape route rather than trying to defeat Cody in a traditional sense. The logic was sound. Drew was down 2 falls to 0, exhausted, damaged from 35 minutes of warfare. His best chance at victory was speed rather than prolonged combat. He immediately charged at the cage wall and began climbing, trying to reach the top and escape before Cody could stop him. But Cody Rhodes, equally exhausted and damaged, but with the advantage of leading 2 falls to 0, grabbed Drew's leg and pulled him down from the cage, refusing to let victory slip away through escape. What followed was both men repeatedly attempting to escape, sometimes by climbing, sometimes by trying to reach the cage door, while the other prevented escape through whatever means necessary. It created a dynamic different from the first 2 falls, where this wasn't about inflicting damage, but about denying the opponent's escape while securing your own. Around the 8-minute mark of the cage match, Drew finally managed to create separation by hitting Cody with a Claymore kick that sent the American Nightmare crashing into the steel cage wall with impact that legitimately looked like it might have caused injury. Drew, running on pure desperation and survival instinct, began climbing the cage again, this time making it 3/4 of the way to the top before Cody recovered. The crowd was standing, chanting, "This is awesome," in appreciation of the drama unfolding before them, watching 2 men give absolutely everything they had left in pursuit of victory. But Cody Rhodes, showing the resilience and determination that's defined his entire WWE return, climbed after Drew despite the punishment he'd absorbed. Both men reached the top of the cage simultaneously, both straddling the top of the structure, both just feet away from dropping to the floor and securing victory. What followed was a fight on top of the steel cage that was genuinely dangerous. Both men throwing strikes while balanced precariously 15 feet in the air, both knowing that one wrong move could result in a fall that would end not just the match, but potentially a career. The finish came in a moment that will be replayed and analyzed for years. Drew and Cody, both exhausted beyond measure, both bleeding, both hurting, exchanged strikes on top of the cage until Cody hit a desperation headbutt that rocked Drew and caused him to lose his grip. Drew teetered on the edge of falling back into the ring, and Cody, making a split-second decision that prioritized victory over safety, grabbed Drew and delivered a crossroads on top of the steel cage. Both men crashed down into the ring from the top of the cage in a horrifying fall that drew gasps from the entire arena. Medical personnel rushed to ringside immediately, clearly concerned about potential serious injuries from a 15-foot fall onto the ring canvas. But the referee, seeing both men down in the ring after falling from the cage, began a 10 count that would result in the first man to recover winning the fall and the entire match. The crowd counted along with the referee, the tension absolutely unbearable as everyone waited to see who would move first. At the count of 7, Cody Rhodes stirred. At 8, he began crawling. At 9, he draped one arm over Drew McIntyre's chest in the weakest cover imaginable. The referee, positioned for the pin, counted. 1, 2, 3, Cody Rhodes had won the third fall and won the 3 stages of Hell match after a total time of 53 minutes and 27 seconds of combined wrestling. He had secured entry into the Royal Rumble. He had kept his dream of completing his father's story alive. And he had eliminated Drew McIntyre from Royal Rumble consideration, effectively ending Drew's chance at a WrestleMania main event for 2026. The immediate aftermath was devastating for different reasons for both men. Cody Rhodes, the victor, could barely celebrate. He lay on the mat, physically destroyed from the match, emotionally overwhelmed by what he'd had to do to win, tears streaming down his face not from joy but from the weight of having destroyed someone he respected to achieve his own goals. Medical personnel attended to both men,